Hey guys, in this tutorial I'm going to go over two different setups for the wrong warp. I'm going to do the intermediate first, then the advanced. Alright, so first of all I just want to point out that this ROM I'm using shows the values of the shells I'll be placing in the bottom where the points normally are. I'm going to be using that to help with the tutorial, but it's also pretty helpful if you're practicing this, so I'm going to put the link to the patch in the description. Alright, so for the intermediate setup, first thing you do, come in full jump, tail up that Koopa at about the peak of your jump. And then after that you're just gonna run to the right onto this pipe. Then full jump and start flying right as you hit the side of this pipe. You don't want to start flying too early because you might not have pace speed by then. So get up here and make sure you get onto this pipe somewhat fast, because if you get onto here really slow and start moving around really slow, setup might not work because you need to maintain the flight for the next section. So just do that. Grab it, fly up, get in the pipe. So for this next part, you're gonna kill the 3 piranhas to the left with the shell, then jump up to the right. And killing the 3 piranhas consistently can be kind of tricky, but if you have a setup, then it's not that bad. So what I do is right as I get out of the pipe, I just don't hold any direction, and I jump at about this height. It's like sort of not bonking my head, but still going up pretty high. Then, once I'm at the peak of my jump, I tap left, then let go of the shell. And once I land, I full jump, then tap A like 2 times, and I get up here. So it usually works, but you don't want to go too fast, because if you go too fast, then the piranha plant on the left actually won't die, which is pretty annoying. So yeah, just do that, and get up there, then after that, get in the pipe. So the first part of this next section is grabbing the Koopa at the top, which is kind of tricky. So the first thing you do is you just get up here. You can either run to the right and rub the pipe a little, or you can avoid rubbing the pipe like that, which is a bit more optimal. Then right when you get up here, you're gonna full jump and start going to the left. And then once you're right next to the Koopa, you're gonna press A and B at the same time to tail up and flutter. Then you're gonna press A few more times after to flutter a few more times to make it more safe. And you grab the shell and you run up here and you just kill the shell, and you just make sure that you're not killing the shell too early, because if it's a pixel off then it won't work. Also, the good thing about this is that if you somehow miss this, then you can just grab the shell whenever, because it doesn't matter whether it's going up or down, you can just get it whenever, and it works. So for this part, there's actually another important thing I need to mention. So as you can see, as I get out of this pipe, in the bottom left, the value starts cycling, and this value is linked to this shell right here, and as you can see right now it's on AC, and basically this shell is gonna despawn once you jump from a certain spot in the top area, and depending on which value the shell's on when it despawns, it can influence whether the game crashes, so it's important to make sure that you're staying away from a bad range of values. And the way that this works is that the shell starts moving once you come out of this pipe right here. And stop cycling once you jump from this orange part right here. And once this value is set, so right now it's at 90, once you set it from despawning it, you actually can't change it again. Like, even if I go down here, it won't change, even though this isn't where I despawned it. And this value is a hexadecimal, and if you don't know how that works, then it goes something like this. So it goes number 0 through 9, A through F, then next number 0 through 9, A through F. And if it ends with D, E, F, or 2, then it'll crash your game, so you want to stay away from those values. There are also some other values that can crash them, but for this particular climb you don't need to worry about those ones. The values are going to be seeing for this one look like this. So the ideal thing you want to go for are the values from 83 to 8C. You can also go from like 80 to 8C, but 82 can kind of fuck things up. So you can like adjust the way you climb and make sure that you're having a consistent climb so that you can get these values consistently, so that like, yeah, if you're getting stuff like 86, 87, then you should be in the clear most of the time. So just find something that works. And you can also go really optimal, but it's extremely hard. Like, usually you'll get like a 93, 94, but the fastest I've gotten is 9A. So that's like 2 different options you can do. But this is only if you have like really optimal movement, so it might not be ideal. So yeah, just figure out what works for you, make sure you're getting a good value, like maybe take things a little bit slowly if you need to. Like for this you can rub into that. And I got 8A, which is pretty good. It's kind of close to DEF, but not that bad. And after that, just continue like normal. So after you kill that shell, you're gonna drop down and grab this shell. Alright, so you're gonna do the same setup here that you do for the easy setup. It's gonna be on the exact same pixel as that. So if you know how to do that, then you can just do that. But there's actually an easy way of doing this that not a lot of people know about. And basically what that is you're just gonna make sure that you're not too far to the left of this pipe when you throw it. You're facing left, and then you're gonna tap A at the same time that you let go of B, and then you're gonna tap A a little bit after. And it should land on the right value, which it just did. So you can actually tell which value is the right value, because in the points, the first 2 digits are it's the value that this shell is assigned to, so make sure that it's on 20 and you should be fine. So yeah, the setup's pretty consistent, just make sure that you're not pressing A too soon, like the second A press after the first one, because then that can happen. So it should be on 20, but it's actually pretty random, so like as you can see there, I didn't really do anything wrong, but it's on 21 because of the shell subpixel. So yeah, after it's on 20, then you're just gonna get into this pipe right here. So for this last shell setup, there's only one way that you can do this. You actually are not able to do the easy way of setting this shell up, because if you go back up into this pipe, one of the Koopas up top is still alive, which is usually killed in the easy setup, but for here that's gonna overwrite the value, so you can't do that. So what you're gonna do here is you're gonna run to the left when you're getting out of this pipe, then a little bit after you get out of this pipe you're gonna tap A, so that you do a flutter, and then you're gonna do a second flutter, but you're gonna make sure that the second flutter doesn't overlap with the first one. So like right there I pressed A 2 times, but I did it way too fast, so that's way off. So this shell is supposed to be on 8F. As you can see, it's right there. So yeah, like the 2 flutters are kind of spaced apart right here. And it doesn't need to be too specific, so just do it like somewhat spaced apart, and it's pretty lenient. It should almost always land on 8F. There's kind of a random element for this one, but this is very consistent still. Like, just make sure that the second one also doesn't overlap as you're jumping on this Koopa. So like as you can see there, I was like in the middle of my flutter while I was kind of landing on him, and that's really bad. So that's why you want to do the first one kind of early, so you have more leeway to do the second one and have some space between them. Alright, so after you set this up, so 8F. After you set this up, you're gonna do the pipe clip, and how to do this pipe clip, you're gonna jump from when you're right here in the crack between these 2 blocks, and you're gonna aim for the horizontal light green line. It's at like the brim of this pipe. And this pipe clip is really random with the tail, and that's why you usually damage boost to Small Mario with the easy method, because with the tail it is extremely random to get into this pipe. I think it's like 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 chance with a perfectly executed jump, so it's kind of shitty. But if you're doing this setup, then that's kind of what you have to deal with. So when you set up this shell, you have 3 attempts at the pipe clip before this Koopa wakes up. So as you can see there, that was pretty lucky. And if you aren't able to get it within 3 attempts, like, it's gonna mess us up on purpose. Like, I messed it up, I didn't get it, so you go back, you get this shell, and the backup for this is that you stand so that the tip of Mario's shoe is kind of hanging over the outline of the right brim of this pipe. So the shell should be on, like, hold on, let me just do that. The shell should be on like A8 when you do this, and then you're gonna pause, and then after you pause, you're gonna press pause and B at the same time, and it's gonna tail whip it, and it's gonna land. So this is pretty random. It can either land on 90 or 8F, and you need it to land on 8F. And you can tell the difference between these two values because 90 will be kind of centered on this block that I'm standing above. Like, if you look under the pipe, you can kind of use that block as a cue to line this up. I need to just get rid of that. Oh, that sucks. So yeah, there you can see it's like centered. So it's on 90. There you can like tell it's like off to the left a little bit. You want it to be like off-center to the left. That means it's on 8F. So as you're doing this, and like as the shell's going down, you're gonna want to start running to the left a little bit. And then if you see that it's not lined up correctly, you're gonna go back and do it again. And the reason you're gonna run as the shell's like going down in place is because like it gives you more time to do another attempt, so you get 2 attempts for every time that you do this. So you can just go for it 2 times. Then if it doesn't work out, you just go back, do it again. So that was on 90. For a second there I thought I was on 90, but it's actually on 8F. So yeah, just keep doing that until you get the pipe clip. This is like a last resort. If this happens and you're kind of just doing this a lot, then it might be difficult to get a PB by this point, but it's an option that you can do if you don't get the pipe clip within 3 tries for the initial setup. So if you do the wrong warp correctly, then the value in the point count will be 20 E3 8F0. And as long as that's correct and the value in the bottom left does not have a bad value in it, then this should always work. Alright, so there are 2 things I want to point out about this last part. So before you go into this note block or before you jump into it, you're gonna let go of down, because when you're standing it makes a different sound than when you're ducking, and it makes the game less likely to crash and actually saves a frame every time, I'm pretty sure. So you're gonna want to do that to prevent a lot of crashes and to be fast. So also, if you want to be really safe, the music that's playing right now has a large impact on what kind of crash you get, or like how fast you enter the chamber, or whether or not you can get like an infinite loop. So if you want to make sure that you don't get a crash, you want to jump into the note block as the melody is playing. So like, it's this right now, it's like the da-da-da-da-da-da. You get in there really fast, and you should get in there basically every time. Like, if you do that, then the game should not crash under any circumstances. So yeah, but usually if you're doing like a PB attempt, you might not want to wait that long, so you're just gonna like go instantly like that. So as you can see, I didn't do it during the melody, so it took a bit longer to get into the chamber, but it's still fine, because like, it's still better than waiting a long time for the melody to start playing. Alright, now for the advanced setup. So this one uses a different setup for these first two sections. So what you're gonna do here is I'm just gonna demonstrate this. Alright, so first of all, this first jump is a complete pain in the ass, so this might be kind of hard to get down, but basically what you gotta do is a little bit before you're right in the middle of this block that I'm standing on, so like around this area, you're gonna hold A, and then immediately after you hold A, you're gonna start holding right. That's usually a good way to make sure you get up there consistently. And also holding B, obviously, so you're just running the whole time. Okay, so now the second part is grabbing this guy. So you have two options. You can either kind of take it slow, just get him, then continue. Or you can like get him as you're running, and that's kind of hard because when you're running, you kind of have to make sure that the downtime of you not pressing B is like extremely small, because if you're not holding B for slightly too long, then you'll just not have the right speed and you'll just take damage. Or something like that will happen, where you just won't be able to grab the shell. So do one of those two things. You know, the next part, you're gonna want to jump onto this next pipe, and you want to jump so that you're like standing right here. You don't want to jump or land too early on this, because you'll start building P-speed too soon, and it can make it really difficult or even impossible to get P-speed by that point. So like, make sure the back of your feet are on the brim of this. And then, once you're like right here, or like right as you're falling off of this pipe, you have two options. You can either stop holding right for a second and then re-hold right once you're like a little bit further. Yeah, like start re-holding right once you're like down here. You can also turn back instead of not holding right. So like that. Just make sure that you're like not losing too much speed, because if you do that part incorrectly, you'll just lose your speed on this next pipe that you fall onto. Like that. So you just do that. And now the P meter is going to build up while you're on this one, and at the very moment that you gain your 6 arrow, that's the point when you want to jump up to this pipe again. And you want to jump on this pipe. This time you want to jump on this pipe as soon as possible. So like not where you did the first time. So yeah, I just look at the P meter once I'm on here. Makes it a lot easier, for me at least. Or at least more consistent. So yeah, right immediately, like literally right as you get the 6 arrows when you want to jump. Yeah, this jump, if you don't get this jump, you can just like try again to get it and just do some backup thing, I don't know. Wow, this jump really sucks. Then you just skin the pipe. So yeah, this is way more difficult than the other way of doing it, but it saves about 4 seconds. So it's very worth it if you're trying to go for like a sub 310 time in this. Okay, there I landed like too far to the right that time. For the start of this setup, it's the exact same as the intermediate method, so you're just gonna kill the 3 piranhas to the left with the shell, then jump up, but this time you're gonna full jump once you land on here and fly up and land on the left side of this pipe. So this skips this pipe animation. That's where the time save comes from. So you can also optionally skip doing that full jump on the orange part and get up here, but it's slightly less optimal and there's a chance that you might not make it up if your flying isn't good enough. So it's kind of risky to go for it. Probably just go for this one. Alright, so once you're up here, you're gonna do kind of difficult setup to grab this shell. So you're gonna jump in here, kinda, and go around, and you're gonna land on this block. You wanna land on the left side of this block with enough speed, so the two most important things here are to have enough speed and to land on the left side of this. And if it all works, then you can just grab the shell like that. So I start repressing, then holding B once I'm like right here, maybe like a little further to the left. Then I'll automatically just tail whip the Koopa and grab the shell. Then you just kill it like that. So right there, I jumped. Well, it was a mixture of me jumping slightly too far to the right and not having enough speed. So in that case, I would have to like react to it, then like tap A to do a flutter like at the last second, and I can just like kind of recover it. Or you can just do that as a safety thing to just get there consistently, like do an extra flutter after grabbing it. Like that. And if this method is too hard, then you can just do the regular one where you go around like that. Just kill it in the same spot as you normally do. Just like the intermediate setup, you have to worry about the value in the bottom left, which can, again, cause the game to crash if it's on a bad value, but fortunately, if you just get through this at a pretty normal basic speed, you should be able to get a good value every time. Like there I got 67, and that's like right in the middle of where you're trying to get. So the values look like this. So these are the... So you want to go like from 63 to 6B, so if you're getting stuff like 66, 67, then you're like right in the middle. This is like the range of values that basically everyone goes for, and it's pretty standard, so definitely recommend that you go for that if you're doing this. But if you want to be extremely optimal, you can do like 70 through 78, that's a potential area that you can get into. But it's kind of annoying because most of the time you'll just get like 70 to 74. You can occasionally get 72, which just crashes the game, and that's annoying, and there's not really any control over that. And the fastest I've gotten in practice was 78. So to do this, you have to have like anywhere from like 70 and above. You have to have extremely optimal movement in this top section. So to do that, I have specific flies that I do. So at the peak of the jump up here, after the peak of that jump, I tap A 2 times. It gets me up there pretty consistently. I'm kind of mistiming my jump. Then you just full jump off there like immediately as you land. And then after that, the full jump that I do on this orange part, I flutter 4 times up at a certain rhythm. So I do like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And for the 4th flutter, I kind of change the timing of it depending on how my rhythm was and where I am at the moment. So, okay, kind of messed that up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're just trying to get up here as fast as possible too, and you want to jump on this, jump off this as fast as possible, then jump off this as fast as possible. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, kind of jumped early there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, this can be kind of difficult to time, but you have to like really be optimal if you want to skip the bad values. So that was 71, that wasn't bad, but not that fast. One, 2, 3, 4. This might be a bit slow. Yeah, 71, still fine. So yeah, 73, that's pretty good. So you just gotta really optimize your movement here if you want to be able to get in this range, but if you're going for world record or something, then this is definitely something that you probably need to do because it saves a good bit of frames. But yeah, a regular 63 through 6B, that's the recommended way of doing this. So for this next part, there are 3 different ways you can set up this shell. The first way is just doing it the easy way if you want. And after you do that, get in the middle pipe. And after you get in the middle pipe, you can do the exact same setup for the last shell as you do in the intermediate setup. And the second method is after you kill this shell, just go down here. Then once you're around this area where it is paused, you're gonna space 3 A presses like this. And then, so yeah, the goal here is just to land right next to the Koopa without landing on top of it. And once you're like right next to the Koopa, or like a very specific distance relative to the Koopa, that's your visual cue for when you're going to want to press left and B at the same time, tail whip, then keep running to the left after that. Just like that. So the shell should be on 20 if it works out. So for this ROM, yeah, in the points count, the first 2 digits should be 20. And the visual cue is a bit specific, and you're gonna have to practice it a lot to get a feel for when exactly you should press left and B. Like if you're a bit too early or late, like a frame too early or late, you'll either get 1F or 21 instead of 20. But yeah, 20 is what you want here for this shell. So just after practicing it a lot, you can kind of just get a feel for it, even though there's no real visual cue and it's kind of specific. You should be able to get it pretty consistently after a while. Like there I was too fast, so I got 21. And also I personally sometimes press B a little bit after I start holding left. And that seems to make it slightly more consistent for me sometimes. But it might not make that much of a difference. But yeah, just find whatever works for you here. Practice it a lot, get a feel for it. It's pretty consistent if you do it correctly. Okay, so for this last shell setup, it's extremely random and it only saves 1/3 of a second over the method that I just showed before this. And what you're gonna do here is grab the shell and throw it. Okay, but it looks kind of different than that. It looks like that. So this is dependent on a lot of things and it's very random. So first of all, it's like a shell subpixel component, so that's random. And also the speed at which you throw the shell is important for this. And you don't really have control over that because your speed is inconsistent as you're accelerating sometimes. Yeah, so you're gonna like throw it that way, and the area that you throw it at is, like as I'm running to the left, my visual cue for this is like, when I see that a pixel of the shell has disappeared to the left side of the screen, that's when I throw it. Like as you can see, the shell is disappearing right here. So when a pixel of it is off screen, that's when I throw it. Like maybe like a little before, gotta throw it pretty early here. So it's pretty random. There's a lot of different factors that make this random. Okay, there I actually got it, so it's on 20. So yeah, not really recommended under any circumstances, but it exists, so there it is. Alright, so if you did the flutter method or the throw method for the previous shell that I just showed, then you'll notice that you'll end up in the right pipe rather than the middle pipe. And unfortunately, the setups for this last shell are way more difficult and random than the middle pipe. But I'm just gonna show the setups that exist for this because there are a few. So for the first one, you're just gonna hold left and without holding B, so just hold left without B, so you're walking like this. Then the instant, like immediately as you fall off this pipe, you're gonna tap A once. Then a little bit after, like you're gonna do a specific spacing between that and a second A press. So it should look like that. And there it lands on 8F, which is the correct pixel. But if you do it too fast, then it won't work. So just notice, yeah, like there it's on 90. So just notice how there, like my tail, like how my tail's moving. You can kind of tell when I'm pressing A. Like here it should be incorrect. Like there it's incorrect. But here I'm gonna kind of do a different spacing. So it's like more slow on the second one. So that's very important that your inputs are like correctly spaced there, or else the shell can be way off. But as long as you just get this down, then it should be somewhat consistent. There is a pretty large shell subpixel influence on this particular setup, which is pretty unfortunate, but for these setups, it's just what you gotta deal with. So yeah, this the spacing and shell subpixel are the two main things here. So it's difficult, kind of random, but definitely the best option here. So the second method is a bit similar to the first one, where you're just holding left without holding B when you're entering this. But this time you're gonna do a full jump as you're walking, and the full jump is gonna be approximately once the tip of your shoe is like hanging over the left side of this pipe like this. Like around that area, it doesn't need to be like that specific. And you just jump on the shell like that, tail up it like normal, and then it's on 8F. There are some save states where this is really like inconsistent, never really works, because the shell subpixel for this setup is like extremely bad. Sometimes it works every time, sometimes it just always lands on 90 like it just did now. Sometimes it's pretty lenient, sometimes it's really tight. So this can kind of suck, but it does exist, so I'm just gonna show it off here. You can do it if you want, but it's not really that consistent. Might be slightly easier to do than the other one, but definitely way more random. Okay, nice, just got 8F again. Okay, so you can also optionally, so normally you'd like bounce on it then whip it, but you can do this, like just go to the right of it, then tail whip it like that. But there's no real like consistent setup for this that I know of. Just kind of have to look at the Koopa, maybe experiment with it yourself, see what setups you can find, if you can find something consistent. But personally, I can't really help you with that. Like, just figure out what works for that. There's no real consistent thing you can do for that. But it saves time because you don't have to bounce on it, you just directly whip it once it's on the correct pixel. So it does save some time, but not really that consistent, or not really easy. Alright, so the final method, this saves about 2 seconds over the other setups. And this isn't really necessary unless you're going for a world record or like a sub 3:06 time. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna grab the shell, and once you grab the shell you're gonna go around and just go straight for the pipe clip. So this is the method where you just throw the shell at the end, which is the current method that the world record uses. And this method is pretty hard because you're going to be throwing the shell at the end as you go into the invisible note block. And the thing about this throw is that it's double frame perfect, so you have 1 frame to throw it and 1 frame to jump into the block, so it's pretty difficult. But it is very consistent, usually. So yeah, just do that. And once you grab this shell, you actually have 4 tries at the shell clip. Why I say shell clip? Fucking pipe clip before the shell wakes up instead of 3 like normal, because if you're holding the shell, the timer for when it wakes up is different than when it's just sitting there. So instead you have 4 tries instead of 3. And if you don't get it within 4 tries, then what you do is you pause, do the tail whip method that you do for the backup and then you can do 4 more attempts at it. So yeah, let's do that. Exact same method as a pipe clip for the other intermediate thing that I showed. Alright, so this is one thing that can happen when you're going down with the shell throw method. Sometimes the screen can break, and unfortunately this means that your run is dead because the shell that you're holding no longer exists. Like if you throw it, it just does not exist. So it's actually physically impossible for you to do the setup. Like you can't like throw it and hope that you get it blind because there's not even a chance for that to happen. So if the screen breaks like that, that's pretty unfortunate, but... Alright, so this is how the last shell throw looks. Okay, so first of all, before you get to this part, make sure you're holding down and B. As long as you're holding down, you just automatically just slide in there like normal. And you're gonna... So again, this is double frame perfect, so you have 1 frame to throw it and 1 frame to jump into this invisible note block. So the frame that you're looking for when you throw it, it's gonna be one of the frames that you're like on this pipe. So basically it's like immediately after you land on this pipe, and that's when you're gonna throw it. Like you don't want to do it too, like you don't want to do it in the air or else it's gonna be way off. Or like before you land, you don't want to do it too late either, so it's like a little bit after you touch the pipe. Just like that. And the area where you're gonna press A to jump into this, so the visual cue for this, if you look at this, you can see the glitched corner pipe block right here. And once the shell is like the right side of this glitched corner block is cutting through the middle of this shell, then that's when you jump. But it's gonna be like a little bit off to the left, but yeah, basically cut down in the middle by the side of the pipe thing. So it should be like when the shell is around right there. Okay, it keeps locking, this is annoying. When the shell is like around this area, that's when you're gonna press A. So yeah, also before you jump into this, you can just let go of A for a second to get in, but I personally started doing this strat before I knew that the standing method was a thing, and I'm kind of not used to that, so I don't really go for that often. But yeah, so it should look like that. That's like the ideal throw you should do, where you just get it and you do the standing jump into the note block. There's nothing else to really say about this. It is pretty consistent, as long as you're just hitting the right frames every time. Okay, so that was like a frame early, I think. That was interesting. There's also one other thing you can do to make this slightly easier. So if you get to this point, you just hold right, then tap left really quick, and then you can just throw the shell and try it like that, where you only have to do one frame input here. Makes it slightly easier, but the problem with this is that when you go to the right, then left like this, it's shuffling your subpixel, and if it's off, then it won't work. But if you're lucky, then you'll be able to get the throw like this. So yeah, this is like a bit slower than the other way by like a little bit over a second, I guess. But it does work, so it is a thing that you can do. Pretty random though. And yeah, the visual cue for when you jump into the note block for this is pretty much the same as when you're doing it the regular way. So yeah, just do like a quick, like, right left. And then hope that you get good subpixel RNG for this. So that's the end of the tutorial. I have nothing else to go over. I'm not the best at explaining things thoroughly, so if you're confused or have a question, just leave a comment. I'll answer everything. And thanks for watching. See you guys.